Japan built resorts that made the rest of Asia feel inadequate. Private islands with helicopter pads, hot spring hotels carved into cliffs above the Pacific, golf courses on active volcanoes, room rates that assumed the guest had already stopped thinking about money. Some of those places hosted royalty. Some of them charged more per night than most Japanese families earn in a month. And then, the bubble burst. The typhoons came. The developers made announcements and then disappeared. Japan now has entire islands that were once five-star resorts where the only guests left are the trees slowly reclaiming what was taken from them. Stay until number 1, because there is an island in Japan where the last guest checked out in 1995 and the hotel register is still open on the front desk. Nobody closed it. Nobody came back to close it. These are 10 Japanese resorts that went from 5-star to silence. Nijima Resort Complex. In the late 1980s, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government funded a resort complex on a volcanic island 160 kilometers from the city center. The logic was straightforward. Tokyo residents needed somewhere to go. The island had beaches, hot springs, and a flight time of 45 minutes. The bubble economy made the numbers work. Then the bubble ended. The resort buildings, funded by public money, designed by committee, built at a scale the island's 2,800 permanent residents had never asked for, sat increasingly empty through the 1990s and into the 2000s. Some sections still operate seasonally. Others have been sealed. A surfer from Tokyo who visits Nijima every year for the waves described walking past the sealed wing of the main complex. "The windows face the Pacific," he said. "The view hasn't changed. Nobody is looking at it." The failure here was not weather, not distance. It was a resort built for a version of Japan that stopped existing before the paint dried. Hotel Huis-ten-Bosch, abandoned wing. In 1992, a Dutch-themed resort town opened on the Omura Bay coast of Nagasaki Prefecture. Not a hotel, a town. 1,750 hectares of canals, windmills, reproductions of Delft architecture, and accommodation designed to make Japanese tourists feel they had arrived in Europe without the flight. The investment was extraordinary. The debt was more extraordinary. By 2003, the operator filed for bankruptcy, one of the largest corporate failures in Japanese history at the time. Large sections of the complex were sealed. The canals that had been designed to carry gondolas carried nothing. The windmills turned. Nobody watched them. A journalist who covered the bankruptcy described walking through the closed sections with a facility manager who had been employed there since opening day. "He walked the corridors from memory," she said. "Every turn without checking. 11 years, the same route. Half of it now sealed behind him." The resort eventually found new operators and partial revival. But the sealed sections remained sealed. A Dutch theme park in a country that had briefly believed it needed one and then changed its mind. Sarushima Island Resort, Kanagawa. For a brief period in the 1990s, someone decided Sarushima needed a resort. The island is already strange. Meiji-era fortifications, brick tunnels, gun emplacements built in 1881 that never fired a shot in anger. The resort was added to this, a facility for day trippers and overnight guests, layered on top of military ruins, layered on top of an island that the mainland could see from shore. The economics did not hold. The resort buildings now sit alongside the military ruins in a state that has become difficult to distinguish, both abandoned, both becoming the island. A historian who studies Meiji-era coastal fortifications visits regularly. He said the strangest thing is not the military ruins. He has studied those for 20 years. The strangest thing, he said, is the resort vending machines, still standing, still branded, between a 140-year-old gun emplacement and the Tokyo Bay. One kind of Japan beside another kind of Japan, both equally gone. Aogashima Island Resort Facilities. Aogashima is a volcano inside a volcano. The village of 170 people lives inside the crater. In the late 1980s, a small resort facility was built to accommodate the tourists who were expected to arrive once the ferry service improved. The ferry service did not meaningfully improve. The resort facility, a small complex of accommodation buildings, and a community bathhouse heated by geothermal vents from the volcano beneath, operated at a fraction of capacity for years before sections were closed. The bathhouse still functions. The accommodation has not. A travel writer who spent a week on Aogashima described the closed resort wing as the least surprising abandonment she had ever seen. "The island is actively difficult to reach," she wrote. The resort was built for tourists who first had to want to visit a volcano inside a volcano accessible by a ferry that runs only when the Pacific Ocean agrees. The Pacific Ocean, she noted, does not consult resort occupancy rates when forming its opinions about the weather. Hashima Island, Gunkanjima. In 1974, Mitsubishi closed the coal mine on Hashima Island. In 1 month, the most densely populated place on Earth became empty. 259 people left. The buildings stayed exactly where they were. Apartment blocks, a school, a hospital, a pachinko parlor, a rooftop garden maintained by miners' wives who grew vegetables 600 meters from shore on the surface of a concrete island in the East China Sea. The buildings have been deteriorating ever since. UNESCO listed the island in 2015. Japan agreed, as part of the listing process, to acknowledge the wartime forced labor that built the facility. Korean and Chinese workers brought here under conditions that killed an estimated 1,300 of them. The interpretive display that followed was described by historians in South Korea as inadequate. The island is now a tourist destination, photographed constantly. The concrete ruins are considered beautiful. The forced laborers are mentioned in a small exhibit on the mainland. The island that made a mining company rich and killed workers whose names most visitors will not learn deteriorates photogenically in the East China Sea. It does not look like guilt. It looks like architecture. Shimoda Tropical Village, Shizuoka. The bubble economy believed that what Shimoda needed was a tropical village. Shimoda is already beautiful. Rocky Coastline. The first American consulate in Japan opened here in 1856. Fishing boats. Black ships in the harbor every summer for the festival. Someone looked at all of this and decided it needed a dome containing fake palm trees and a heated indoor beach and accommodation that attempted to recreate a Polynesian resort experience in a town that had a perfectly good actual coastline directly outside. The facility opened in 1990 at the peak of the bubble. By 2001, it had closed. The dome still stands. A structural engineer who assessed the building for a potential redevelopment proposal described going inside. "The palm trees are still there," he said. "Artificial ones. Some have fallen. Some are still standing. The indoor beach is still there. The sand. No water now, just sand in the dark under a dome, 160 kilometers from Tokyo, in a town that always had a real beach 6 minutes away." He said the development proposal did not proceed. He said he was not surprised. Abandoned Hotel Kankaiso, Hokkaido. Hokkaido was built for snow. The ski industry in the 1980s created resorts across the island on the logic that Japan's growing middle class would ski every winter indefinitely. The resorts built in the bubble years built large. When the economy contracted, the guests did not disappear entirely, but they became selective. The resorts that offered enough survived. The resorts that had overbuilt discovered that a ski hotel in the off-season with no guests costs almost as much to maintain as one full of them. Kankaiso closed with the furniture still inside. A photographer who documented abandoned Hokkaido resorts described the hotel ballroom. "The chairs are still arranged," he said, "around tables set for a banquet that never happened. Or happened once, the last night before closing, and nobody cleared the tables because there was nobody left to clear them for." Outside, ski runs returning to birch forest. The lifts no longer move, but the cables are still strung between towers disappearing into the tree line. The mountain doesn't know the resort has closed. It keeps making snow. Ukushima Island, Nagasaki. Ukushima was supposed to be different. The resort built here in the late 1980s was marketed as sustainable, environmentally responsible, a model for what island tourism should become. Solar panels, local sourcing, architectural design that acknowledged the island's landscape rather than overwriting it. The investment was real. The intention was real. The financial model did not survive the post-bubble contraction. The resort closed. The solar panels continued to generate electricity for a building with no guests. A conservationist who visited the island years after closure described finding the environmental monitoring equipment still running: tide gauges, weather stations, sensors in the water measuring coral health. All of it still transmitting data to a server room in a building nobody had entered in years. The reef the resort had promised to protect was thriving. The equipment protecting it was still doing its job. Just nobody was reading the reports anymore. Russian village, Niigata. In 1993, someone built a Russian village in Niigata. Not a small one, a full complex, onion dome architecture, restaurants serving borscht adapted for Japanese palates, accommodation designed to make visitors feel they had crossed into Siberia without the inconvenience of actually doing so. The logic was geographic. Niigata faces Russia across the Sea of Japan. The distance to Vladivostok is shorter than the distance to Tokyo. This proximity, someone decided, was a tourism asset. The resort opened. The guests came briefly. The guests stopped coming. In 2004, it closed. The onion domes are still standing. A local farmer whose land borders the facility described watching the complex over 20 years. "The domes don't rust," he said. "They just sit there. Every few years someone comes to look at it. They take photographs. They leave. The domes are still there." He has stopped finding this strange. In Niigata, he said, the strangest things eventually become ordinary. The Russian village, he said, is just part of the view now. Sun Village, Dejima Island area, Nagasaki. The register at the front desk is still open to September 1999, not because someone preserved it, because nobody came back to close it. The resort opened in 1988 at the absolute peak of the bubble economy. Room rate, Y48,000 per night. Capacity, 200 guests. The pool overlooked the East China Sea. The dining room served kaiseki with ingredients sourced daily from the surrounding water. For 11 years it operated. Then, Typhoon Bart made landfall. Category 5. The evacuation was complete. The damage assessment began. The owners looked at the numbers. They did not return. The staff left with their personal belongings. Everything else stayed. The kitchen equipment, the dining chairs, the room keys, hung in rows on the board behind the front desk. The typhoon took the roof from the east wing. The sea took the boardwalk. The jungle took everything else, the way jungle does, without urgency, without announcement, at exactly the pace that makes you realize it was always going to end this way. A marine biologist who dives the reef surrounding the island visits every few years to document coral recovery. She said the reef is the best she has recorded in 25 years of diving. The absence of the resort, she said, has been the reef's best decade. The dining room where guests ate kaiseki, sourced from this reef, is gone. The reef is not. The register at the front desk is still open to September 1999. 1 page, 200 rooms. The last entry is a family from Osaka. They checked out at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. Whether they enjoyed their stay is no longer recorded anywhere.